Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The answer is categorically yes.
This is Critical Commentary with Maurice Williams. Today we're going to be discussing Benjamin Netanyahu's war pass, Trump's ties with Israel, as well as the usual suspect. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why do you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes gonna talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about there are 2 genders. I sat next to her hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch, baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog, she FaceTime, but I never call. So guys, we took a little break, but we're back. We'll be airing episodes again Monday through Thursday. So hit the notification button and be on the lookout for the new shows that'll be airing and the new clips. Hit subscribe if you have not hit subscribe. So if you've been following the recent news, you know that America's at war. It's not a world war yet, but other countries are getting involved, so things are getting serious. People are dying on both sides. Again, Israel is involved, but this time it's not Israel fighting Gazans. It's Israel fighting Iran. And for those who haven't been following, America also was involved. Israel and America preemptively bombed Iran, and there've been multiple reports. Some of the reports were saying that it was done because Iran was going to have a bomb and they were going to hit us. Others are saying that it was done because America wanted regime change, etc. And we'll be going a little bit more into that in a moment. But for me, from the outside looking in, I've noticed a pattern with Israel and them starting wars with various entities in the Middle East. So we've seen it with the Palestinians, we've seen it with Iran, we've also seen it in previous generations, because I'm a little older, I'm in my 30s. We've seen it with Iraq, we've seen it with Libya, which is in North Africa, and we've seen it with Iran now as well. So to me, I'm starting to kind of notice, I'll say I'm noticing a pattern. Some people call it the Great Awakening, some people call it noticing, etc. But I've mentioned this before, his name is Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't necessarily like him as a leader. I think that some of the things that Israel is doing is why Israel is losing support amongst America's youth, right? So amongst the youth, people under 40, a lot of people are like myself starting to notice these patterns, and they're starting to say, well, wait, maybe we shouldn't be as tied to Israel. Maybe we shouldn't be helping them as fund these wars. Maybe we shouldn't be sending our troops off to die in these wars, when a lot of these things are, the only reason they affect America is because of our connection with Israel. So what it is technically it's affecting us, but we don't have to be always in support of them. So I'm just gonna start off this episode. Sorry for the little soliloquy, guys. I'm gonna start off this episode with some footage of Netanyahu, and this is kind of, I say this is his history. This is him in his own words saying what he thinks will make the Middle East better.
If you take away the Soviet Union and its chief proxy, the PLO, international terrorism would collapse.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. Obviously, we like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq. The question now is a practical question.
So I don't know if you keeping track, guys, but that's 3 different places so far, but I'm going to let this finish.
What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out? It's not a question of whether you'd like to see a regime change in Iran, but how do it...
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The answer is categorically yes. The 2 nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. But a 3rd nation, by the way, is Libya as well. Libya is trying very rapidly to build an atomic bomb capability. So I
wanted to let all of this play, but it's so much. So like I said, this so far is Libya, Iraq, and Iran. This is him talking in 1980, I think 82 or 86, 2000, 2002. There's some other clips. I guess I have to pull it up on another episode of him talking in the 80s and 90s saying similar things. But then not only is he talking about doing preemptive strikes, it's the same narrative of everybody's always building a weapon of mass destruction that's going to be finished, of course, within a couple A while ago, it was a couple years in the 80s. Then in the 90s, it was a couple months. In the 2000s, it was a couple weeks. And then the last two wars, they've always been days and minutes away from having nuclear bombs. And to touch on what Trump did, I think maybe that was 6 months ago or so, they already bombed Iran and got rid of their nuclear program. They said it was a wonderful strike. So it's very hard for a lot of people, even myself, to understand and believe, how could you have just 6 months ago devastated and destroyed their entire nuclear system, but now 6 months later you felt like you had to, while you were in negotiations. So to bring us all back, I know what you may have been following this, but we haven't covered it on the show, guys. America was in talks with Iran again, so they were supposed to be in negotiations. They were talking to these people, and while the negotiations are going on, America and Israel go and bomb and kill their leaders. They killed the Ayatollah as well as maybe 50 to 60 or so of their leaders in a strike on a hotel. So while we're in negotiations and talking to the people, and they were talking back, both sides were in conversation, America stated that they got intel that Iran was going to bomb. Well, America says they got intel that Iran was going to bomb them. I guess there's a few things I'm gonna have to come back and touch on in the future, because also the intelligence that America has been providing, a lot of people online have been providing facts to discredit what the American government is saying. Basically, people are, and then some of these leaks are coming out in Congress as well, but there's a lot of question to the validity of, were they going to strike us first? There are many people saying that this is not actually true, and that's not the reason behind the bombing. There are a lot of people saying that the bombing is more so what we're covering right now and what Netanyahu said, and that is just his belief that he would like the Muslim regimes, which are extreme, he would like them to not have money and he would like them to not have weapons. And then to go further, but I'm going to cut this off because I don't want to get too conspiratorial myself, there are people who are saying not only do they want to bomb these people, but there's like a greater plan of, okay, once you disarm them, once you disbomb them, you can kind of grow Israel itself. So we're not going to go that far today, and I'm not even there yet, but there are a lot of people saying why Netanyahu is saying this is behind that is what Israel wants to do is they want to bomb these people, disarm them, and then continue to push them out, similar to how what I do think happened to the Palestinians. Finish the clip.
We have here now 3 nations.
All stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation, and terror. I know that no matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
So as you see, he got a standing ovation. So I can't speak for anybody else's podcast. I can't speak for America. But I will say over here at Critical Commentary, we definitely don't stand with Israel. We're just trying to get down to the bottom of the facts. So I just am going to continue to cover this story. And we'll continue to let you guys know the information we're seeing. I won't say from both sides, but just from all sides. We'll continue to let you guys see the information. Now, Lindsey Graham, who is a U.S. Senator, he recently was on Fox News, basically in support of what Netanyahu is saying. And actually, I will play this clip, but also he's been asked by a couple Fox News anchors why he's been visiting Israel so much, and maybe this clip will shed light on why.
I don't believe. Forget it. I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day. They're the best ally we could hope for. So we have a commander-in-chief in President Trump, who I think is Ronald Reagan plus. All the anti-Semites to all the isolationists. I don't believe.
My issue with this statement is whether you support. Well, I shouldn't say my only issue. For one, I don't support Israel in the second one, the second war, because I believe America and Israel preemptively bombed Iran, so America and Israel started it. My issue with what he's saying is he's supposed to be a U.S. senator, so why would you say I'm with Israel until my dying day? You have literally no connection to Israel other than if Israel is funding your campaign, if they're funding your life. You know, maybe you have a personal connection with them, and maybe that's why you're saying what you're saying, but that's not what we elected you for. The people of South Carolina elected you to be the senator and to represent the South Carolinians. So I think that they probably have other local needs and national needs, things that are more important to them, like hot topic issues, bread and butter issues like the economy, groceries, just things of that nature. Crime, there are a lot of issues in America that I think most Americans care more about other than helping Israel. We care about the war because of the soldiers. We care about the soldiers. If there's a draft, it's going to involve our loved ones and our relatives. So we do care about the troops. The issue is that we just feel like we shouldn't be involved in this in the first place. So that's what my issue is with Lindsey Graham, and then even Matt Walsh, who I don't typically agree with. I'll say this. What's been going on with Israel in recent times, whether it's Gaza or now this war, it definitely has been pushing not just the youth, but people from different sides. Like, typically, I say Matt Walsh is racist, right? A lot of the things he says, I don't agree with him from the cultural aspect or like the racial aspect or even the socioeconomic aspect. But in terms of this situation, I do agree with him. He's saying that it's insane of a U.S. senator to say I'm with Israel until my dying day. Yes, I mean, no matter what side you're on in American politics, it seems that Americans are kind of, again, like I started this segment off saying, we're waking up and kind of just wondering a little bit what is going on with this close tie to Israel. And this is a clip from Trump speaking recently where he talks about the Jewish lobby and anti-Semitism. So for people who are pro-Israel, what they're saying about what I'm calling like the Great Awakening or people noticing, they're calling it anti-Semitism. So what Trump is saying is that the people who are now questioning our relationship or who are open to disagreeing with Israel, who don't want to support the war or don't want to fund the Israeli government and the various things they're doing, he's basically saying that that's anti-Semitism and that carries a negative connotation. It's saying that these people hate Jews, which I don't hate Jewish people, right? So I feel like some, maybe there are people there definitely are people who do hate Jewish people, but to me, just questioning Israel or questioning why something is being done, why are bombs killing 100 and so girls? There were some girls who got killed in Iran at a school, 150 or so, and just various other civilians like Israel was talking about. It's a lot with Israel, guys. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but then there was the situation where Iran did some things that they weren't supposed to do. It was against international law, but then a whole bunch of people were saying throughout the entire Gaza thing, Israel had broken international law time after time after time, and they thought it was okay because they said, well, they bombed us and killed some innocent civilians. So people are now asking the question, if that is the case, and Iran has lost some civilians, these girls and other people, basically people are being objective and trying to be fair, and they're saying, we don't see the difference if you guys have done things that broke international law. Why are you calling on the world to condemn Iran for doing the same thing that you did? But I'll play this clip. I'm new. I'm not going to say new to this, but I'm somewhat new to some of the Israel Jewish connections and the things going on. So if you guys hear me talking a little bit faster, it's just because I'm kind of like passionate about it. So I'm learning with you guys and trying to kind of just get my footing on this topic. But I'll play the clip from Trump.
As President of the United States, I will always support Jewish Americans, and I will always be a friend and a champion to the Jewish people. I have been. And I will say, if you go back 10, 12, 15 years ago at the most, the strongest lobby in Washington was the Jewish lobby. It was Israel. That's no longer true. You have to be very careful. You have a Congress in particular, which is becoming anti-Semitic. You have AOC +3. You have those people, Ilhan Omar, she hates Jewish people. And you have to be very careful because there's been a big change. If you go back 15 years ago, I'm not Jewish, but my father was very friendly with many, many Jewish people, was honored by Federation. I would go with him to Federation of Jewish Philanthropies and many other things. And we grew up respecting and loving Jewish people. You don't even think about it. In Brooklyn and Queens mostly. And my father didn't go to Manhattan. He never went to Manhattan from the standpoint. He could never understand how in Brooklyn you could buy a piece of land for $3 a foot and how in Manhattan you had to pay $1,000 a foot. He said, I can't get that. I don't like it. I like to buy it for $3. So it was different. It's a different thinking. In a way, I'm glad he didn't do that because he let me have some of that fun. And I had a lot of fun in Manhattan. We did great. But my father would tell me the most powerful lobby that there is in this country is the Jewish lobby. It's the Israeli lobby. It's not that way anymore. You have a lot of people in UA. You have a lot of people.
So there's a few things here. And I caught myself actually while I was also watching the clip. I see why this situation is very tricky, right? So they're talking about anti-Semitism, and then they're talking about Jewish people. And like I say, I have no issue with Jewish people. And Trump said the Jewish lobby, and then right after he said the Israeli lobby. So he's talking about AIPAC. And this is why it's hard for people to talk about this topic. It's like, or at least for me, I'm trying to criticize Israel, and I'm trying to keep it about the policies and what's going on with the war and things. But in shorthand, people do refer to the Israel lobby as the Jewish lobby. So this is why people get into a lot of not just confusion, but like with YouTube, right? Like I'm gonna say what I believe, but sometimes when you're talking, you got to remember the platforms, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, etc. They don't want you to say stuff about Jewish people because they're saying it's racist and anti-Semitic. But it seems to be it's just that you can't criticize them because Trump just called the Jewish lobby the Israeli lobby. So I'm just saying that not to protect or not to be on the side of people who I consider anti-Semitic, but I do see how it's like a double standard. It's like if you're talking positive about them, you can say Jewish lobby, or you can say AIPAC, or you can say Israeli lobby. But when it turns into criticism, if you say anything about Jewish people, they try to frame you and call you anti-Semitic. So that's just something now that I'm gonna be talking about the topic, and those of you who follow this, be on the lookout for that. And I definitely think we should call this out, right? If we're gonna have to always say Israel to not get banned, and we can't say Jewish, then they should have to also say the Israel lobby or AIPAC. They shouldn't be able to call it the Jewish lobby because again, supposedly all Jews aren't Zionists. Supposedly everybody Jewish is not in support of the Israel government. So you shouldn't be able to label whatever Israel's doing as the Jewish lobby or the Jewish people. In terms of the war itself, since bombs have been dropping, and now that Trump he was always with Israel, but there are things he's doing now that other presidents have not done. So in terms of this new war, when they bombed Iran the second time, Iran has been defending itself, and they've lost a lot of people. They lost infrastructure, they lost some civilians, and they lost military capabilities. But they surprised the Americans, and I think they surprised the Americans, and they surprised Israel because they had these, not missiles. America and Israel had the missiles, the more high-tech equipment, but Iran had a lot of drones. They had things that cost, I think they were saying America stuff was costing like $1 million a missile, where Iran's was costing like $30,000, $20,000 a drone. They had so many of them that they've been able to like overwhelm the Israel's defense system. And they've been able to do that not because they have more sophistication, but just the sheer amount of drones that they had. Israel and America is not able to stop them. So Israel has been able to, and I'm sad that people are, Iran's been able to do this, but I'm sad that on both sides, not just the girls, I'm sad that the military people are dying, because I just think that it's sad that people are losing their lives when it didn't have to be. From what I'm seeing, if you're already talking, negotiations can be had. So you got people losing their lives because of decisions that the higher ups are making. But to my point of saying is that Israel is losing lives now. They lost some civilians, but they also lost Netanyahu's brother. They also had this guy, I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's one of the Israelis, one of their top personnel people. He was hit, and they're not sure if he was shot, injured, and they're not sure if he's going to make it. So though I don't support the war, I don't support people on either side dying. This is a clip from Ryan Matter. So those who are interested in learning more about not just the war, but learning more things about Israel and their connections with America, or just learning about foreign politics, Ryan is somebody that I follow, and you may find benefit from following him as well. His name is Ryan Matter.
So we got reports coming in that Ben Grieve's house is now burning to the ground. It's been hit by an Israeli missile. And unfortunately, as of now, we have no idea if that scumbag is still alive or not, or he's been taken out by these rockets. But the entire world is praying that this dirtbag is eliminated from the face of the earth. But we can only pray, right? And just imagine what a huge win that would be for the Iranian people and for the Iranian movement. I mean, Ben Grieve is up there with Netanyahu. So these are the type of lieutenants that as the Iranian regime starts eliminating from the face of the earth, the more the momentum they're going to have, and the easier it's going to be for them to rally the troops behind, winning this war, doing a land invasion, and just completely wiping Israel off the map. God bless them.
Right, so guys, I'm a little impulsive, a little reactionary, but so this is kind of highlighting some of what I think. He was saying that the Israel guys is a dirtbag. It may be, probably is. Don't want them dead. I just want them out of power. But I think that how people are talking about this, they're picking sides, and I think that Israel has a lot of problems. But then the Iran government had killed 10,000 of their people. So when I heard him call the Israel people scumbags and say the world wants them out of power, well, the world kind of wanted both regimes out of power. So is the Iran leader who was killed from the U.S., his son took over, right? So they're still extreme Islamic government. They're still gonna be having, like, they're not controlling the women, but it's like a conservative government where the women don't have the same rights as a lot of people in the West. So I don't think that every culture and every society has to have the exact same situation, the same laws, the same culture. But I do think it's obviously clear that the people in Iran are under a controlling and oppressive regime. So I just wanted to take the time out to say that whoever would have won the war, I think people would celebrate because both sides have problems. And I think the better thing would be to do, I don't know if America can do this since we're so tied to Israel, but there should be some way that people, the citizens are given a better situation. The governments on both sides are repressive. So I think that it should be a situation where the people have more of a voice, the people have more of a say. And this is the last clip on Ryan's page, and this is just talking about how Netanyahu's brother, in my opinion, was unfortunately killed.
It's almost like everything we told you about this regime is all coming true. Everything they tell you about Israel, all the strength that Trump's tried to project, Iran is strategically wiping Israelis off the map one by one. Check this clip out.
The Iranians are showing an ability to get intelligence information inputs in the morning and strike in the afternoon with deadly effect. And also, they're starting to expand their target deck. Remember, they didn't invent the concept of regime change. That was Israel on day one, killing Ali Khamenei. Last night, the Iranians struck the home of Benjamin Netanyahu. They killed his brother. They struck the home of Ben Gvir. He is seriously wounded, may not survive. Iran is going to start to take out the totality of Israel's leadership. This is the reality of this conflict. Israel played the regime change game. It's going to be the Israelis that are going to be paying the highest price. The Iranians are no longer wearing kid gloves. They've taken them off, and they're coming in bare knuckle.
They're reporting it. This is interesting. I looked it up as soon as you said it. The BBC is reporting it as Ben Gvir was in a car accident last night. Does that surprise you?
They can report it any way they want. We know that his home is on fire, so maybe he crashed his car into his house.
That's interesting. The only reason I just can't help but be amused by this, because it would not surprise me for the BBC to provide cover for a story like this. Yeah, you and I
now know that the BBC reporters that work overseas are vetted by MI6 before they're allowed to take on their assignments.
Why I think this is important to Americans, because as I said, what's going on with Israel is not necessarily our number one issue, but that would be the case also what's going on in Iran is not necessarily our number one issue. The reason that I think this is an issue for America is they're talking about how Iran was able to hit leaders in Israel. So the Ben guy, but then also they hit Netanyahu's house, and that's where his brother died. The reason Iran is able to do this is because the Chinese and Russians are giving them intel and weapons and using their defense capabilities. So the reason why this is a problem, though this is the war last year was Israel and Gaza. This one is Israel and Iran, but it can turn into a bigger conflict because you have the larger powers. You have America, which is one of the world powers, helping Israel. And then you have Russia, who used to be the second biggest power, and China, who's becoming the second biggest power. They're helping Iran. So this could turn into a much bigger situation. So that's why we'll cover this tomorrow, and we'll be covering this throughout the coming weeks until this ends. Is it may seem like just a Middle East thing, but potentially it could turn into a larger war I don't want to go as far as saying World War III, but that's what some people are concerned with. And also, it's going to affect gas. It's going to affect because Iran had the strait where like 20% of the world's gas comes. So I think the gas prices in America are already going up. But also just across the board in terms of trade with China and America kind of being at odds with each other because of the war, it's going to start affecting our pocketbooks and what's going on our local level. So tomorrow, as well as the rest of the week, I'll just be looking into new information and coming back with you guys and letting you guys know what we see. Always feel free in the comments to let us know what new information you come across. Now, there's another topic, the usual suspects that we're going to cover that's not tied to Israel and it's not tied to the war. And this is just a situation where a teen... it's always so much to unpack. So this one is saying a teen shot someone, and basically they shot a caregiver who was helping someone who had cancer at MD Anderson. He stole her purse, and the backstory to him though is he had a lot of previous violent convictions. So one thing that I would like to see is and a lot of people are saying this is liberal judges. It probably is. I don't know if that's actually the case, but there are a lot of people who have convictions, multiple violent convictions. So not one or two, way past 3. I don't have the graphic on me, but some people is 15 convictions. Some people is 20 convictions. I've seen 30 convictions, right? There are people who are having 20, 30 convictions, violent crime offenses who are being let out on the street. Well, eventually, if they've got that many times they've harmed someone, they're either going to kill them by harming them in the same way, or they're going to escalate and shoot somebody. So that's what happened in the case of this person. So here's the guy. His name was Darius Dwayne, and they say allegedly, but he shot this woman, Marietta Ellison, in North Houston.
I'm coming with some sad news today. Friday, I went to MD Anderson for my second chemo treatment, and I shared about that on Friday. And in that, I got to show you my dad and my friend Marietta, who I consider to be like a sister. And I did have some complications from the chemo. Had a reaction, and so it took longer. So we left MD Anderson at 10:50 on Friday night, and we drove to my friend's house who we were staying with. And my friend Marietta was driving my car, and she dropped my dad and I and the luggage off at my friend's elevator. And then she went to park the car. And when she parked the car, on her walk back, she was shot and killed. This was when we were in Houston. And they have caught the guy. He stole my car. And I asked them, because I saw her purse down the way from her body. And I asked if they had taken the key and he had stolen the car, because I thought that's a way that we could track this person. And they did. And he stole the car. He totaled the car. There were 2 guns in the car that he put there. They were not my firearms. He then escaped on foot and entered an apartment complex and barricaded himself into a vacant apartment. He broke in, and the SWAT team was able to get him out after a couple of hours and arrested him. And it turns out he had some similar evading arrests and things like that and a juvenile record, and he was out on probation. And that's when all this happened on Friday night. So a friend of mine told me that there was a rumor in some circles that I was the one that was killed, and I was not. I think there was a press release that the Houston police put out. This was in a good neighborhood. It was in the Heights. You might have seen some news coverage about a woman being killed on 20th Street in Houston, and that was my sister Marietta. And she's the person, she and her husband are the people that I'm living with right now. And she came back to take care of me while I was going through cancer.
So anytime somebody loses their life is horrible. As you see, this woman has cancer and the person helping her got killed. So now she's dealing with the cancer and dealing with somebody trying to help her, and the person died because, not because they were trying to help her, but the person died in a situation that she may in her mind think, oh, if the person wasn't helping me, she wouldn't have died. So like this guy who they're calling a teen, he's had prior offenses and he has caused harm to the lady who's died family as well as this woman. So this is obviously heart-wrenching and terrible. And for this show, what I've noticed, because I don't just notice things about just one topic, I'm noticing a lot of things about a lot of things, and I'm about to say what Elon said about this topic. But it seems to be that a lot of these stereotypes and things are stereotypes represent a minority. But what I want to touch on is saying that if people are noticing that a lot of times wars are being started and it's people who are Jewish or of Israeli descent or connections, that's why there's going to be a problem with how people talk about and how people view that group. Well, the same thing that they're saying this teen, I don't know how old, this looks like a man. Oh, he's 18, okay. But when they say the teen did such and such, it was a violent offense and it's a black criminal. So again, this is not the only time this has happened. Of course, it's not just black people, but my point of saying this is that we can't expect people to not notice, data, science, and things that they're seeing, right? So when people are seeing violence happen by a community, they're going to talk about it. When people see wars happening by another community, they're going to talk about it. And, to be fair, on Critical Commentary, we're going to cover a lot of these patterns, right? So when we cover the usual suspects, it's not always going to be someone black. It's not always going to be somebody Jewish. It's not always going to be somebody white. But we are going to start, I'm saying the Great Awakening. I don't mean just the Great Awakening, how the people who are based or how the people, I forgot what they call themselves, not the gripers, but the people in the people call them conspiracy theorists, but the base movement, right? I'm not talking about the Great Awakening exactly how they talking about it. I'm talking about the Great Awakening in terms of we're going to just start telling the truth about the stats and the data and the things we're seeing. So when we come across topics, and if it's the usual suspect, you'll hear us say, it's the usual suspect again, like Netanyahu. He's typically the usual suspect when a war gets started amongst the world or nations. And Elon's take on this situation, which I agree with, he says that if someone has a problem, mental rabies, he's calling it, they should be contained. Well, he said killed. They should be contained or they will keep hurting innocent people. I agree. If you have numerous charges, not your first offense, at the second offense, you're already pushing it. I mean, you shouldn't have multiple armed robberies or multiple assault charges. But when you get to 4 and 5 assault charges, I don't know if we should go back to the 3 lockup rule or not, but there has to be something stopping people who have a history of violent offenses from getting out so easily. He's only 18 years old, so he wasn't serving much time. There's something wrong with our judicial system where we're not properly punishing and reprimanding those who are causing physical harm. So we need to fix that. And I'm not sure how people are still following Nick or not, but if you guys are still following Nick and you guys want us to incorporate Nick back into the show, let us know in the comments and I can continue giving responses to his bullshit to me, but the things that Nick says.
So he's going out there saying, has he ever supported BDS? Has he ever told people ways that they could support anti-Zionist politicians? It's like, look, douchebag, you can't even acknowledge the problem. This guy's out there bitching about racism and anti-Semitism. You can't even talk about the problem. The problem is that there is a transnational Jewish nation, not Zionist, you fucking communist. All these communists, they have a problem with Zionism. Why? Because they think that Zionism is an ideology that serves capitalism. They think that, let's just talk about, why does this guy hate Israel? This guy hates Israel and Zionism because he sees the problem as capitalism. The problem is the bourgeoisie. And in their quest for profits, in the bourgeoisie's quest for profits, they need constantly expanding markets for their goods. They need constant markets to sell their products. And so what do the capitalist countries do? The bourgeoisie, which uses liberalism to control the government and the military. They use the military to conquer foreign lands through imperialism, to create markets for their goods. That's the left-wing perspective. They say the capitalist class, the wealthy, those that own the capital, the capitalists that own private capital, the bourgeoisie uses the state and the military to conquer and colonize foreign defenseless people, to establish capitalist hegemony, and then we can extract their raw materials and sell them goods for profit. And that's what the bourgeoisie does in their endless quest for more money. Now, it is within this system, they say that Zionism is part of colonialism, that Israel is sort of like a military outpost for the capitalist empire. And it is from Israel that America conquers the Arab Muslim people of the Middle East. It is an arm of the capitalist empire. And so to the extent that they're ethically cleansing Gaza and the West Bank, and they're doing these things in the Middle East, is to open up the markets for American goods and, for capitalist profits. That's why they see it as a problem. They love left-wing Jews because they're communists. This guy's a communist. And so this guy's influenced by Jewish leftists, Jewish socialists that are against capitalism and that are against Zionism, that have critiqued Zionism. But he does not understand that that is not the problem. The reason that Israel is occupying Gaza and the West Bank is because Israel, in its quest to be free from persecution, must accumulate as much power as possible. So what do? First, they buy the land. Then they start to develop a security force. Then they create a state. Then the state must expand. Then the state has to control its borders. Then it must control its periphery. Then it must control the region. It must acquire nuclear weapons so that it deters any total war against them. These communists do not understand that the Jews are a people, okay? They're distinct from any kind of capitalist class. They identify chiefly as Jews. They identify as people of the book, people of the tradition, of the law, of the priesthood, of the temple, of bondage in Egypt, of expulsion, of captivity, of the Holocaust. That's how they identify first as God's chosen. And they identify that way contra, against, distinct from the nations, the Goyim, everyone else. The Goyim that throughout history and generations, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Romans, the Spanish, the Germans, the British, the Russians, they view the Goyim as one, all the nations as different flavors and different generations and different times, fighting with the Jews in a kind of dialectical historical process to bring about the repairing of the world. That is how they see us. That is how they see themselves. That is how they define themselves against us. And so the problem, well, not the problem, but the sort of the thing at the center of it is Judaism. The thing at the center of it is this ethno-religious identity.
Okay, guys, anytime this nigga talk, I'm going to say there's a lot to unpack. So there probably three, at least when I heard it, this is my first time seeing it, it's three parts to this. I thought the first part was true, even though I don't necessarily agree with his angle. The second part was true. Third part was true. All three parts I agree with, but I think the angles are off. So I'll start with the first part with the colonialism, the Zionism, the capitalism, right? So he's talking about the people who like Jews on the left, and I follow how from that angle you have Jewish people. They have money. They colonize. Since they are the people with the money, they're doing things for themselves, but also people who are in America believe that America's gaining something by, let's say, the gas. They're gaining something by access to the Middle East. They're gaining something by America's built on capitalism. The wealthy people who are elite, whether they're Jewish or not, they feel like they're gaining access to the resources. They made the money in America when over the revolutionary, the industrial revolution, etc., when things are happening in their country. But as he's trying to say, the greed of capitalism makes everybody expand. Agree with all of that, and I totally see why he does. Not necessarily Nick, but certain people may not like the leftist Jews, or may not like the people on the left being pro-Jewish for the reasons that Nick has said and the reason that I just went over. That is all true. That is all happening. That is all a problem to me. It is a problem to some people on the right. It is a problem to actually some people on the left. A lot of the people on the ground level, they call them the extremes, but a lot of people on the ground level don't like what's happening with, Nick said, the bourgeoisie. That's an older term, closer to the Industrial Revolution. Now they call them the upper class, the wealthy, the rich. So the poor that's true. That just everything he's saying, that aspect was true. But at the end, I'm going to tie this in to say why I somewhat disagree with Nick. So then the next aspect that he went on was he was talking about nation building. So he's talking about, obviously the Jews. The story is that the Jews were there, they got kicked out, but whether they were there and got kicked out or never were there, at some point, these Jews that are currently here came from somewhere else. They came from Europe. So what Nick is saying is that they come to Europe, they have to create a state, then they have to protect that state, then they have to grow that state. So he's talking about how they have to get arms, how they have to get nuclear bombs, how they have to first create their border, which again, they created this through the IDF. They got the land from Britain, but then they also had the IDF, which was like a terrorist organization because they were bombing the Palestinians who were already there. So the British people gave land to European Jews, but the people who were native there were always against it. And then some people have been telling me they actually like the people who came in, you could call them refugee Jews, if you want to call them refugees. They were taken in by the Palestinians, and then they became violent against the Palestinians and removed them from their homes forcefully with guns. So again, I agree with Nick that what happened with Israel was the people came, they created the state, they had to protect the state, they had to grow the military because they have to protect the border. Then they say, oh, we have to protect the peripheral because we're surrounded by Muslims, they're extremists, they're trying to kill us. Oh, then Nick is saying this same group gets mass Israel, he's talking about, they get nuclear weapons, which they have, and then he's saying that Israel is trying to grow even, he didn't mention this, but they call it Greater Israel. Now they're going to try to expand, not just protect their land, but get more land, and they're doing it all under the guise of, if we don't do it, they're going to kill us. So again, point one, when I'm talking about the wealthy Jews and why the left accepts it or why the left is supportive, true. When he talks about what Israel is doing, true. Then he ends it off saying, which is going to be true, but then I'm going to start talking about where I'm disagreeing. He starts saying, well, the Jewish people themselves see themselves as a separate entity, right? So they're not seeing themselves as American. They're not seeing themselves as British. They're seeing themselves as a Jewish people. And he's saying that the Jewish people are looking out for themselves and not looking out for everyone else. So my thinking is that nothing he said was inaccurate. I just feel like this is the same history of like any other group of people. They're going to go somewhere, take over the land, grow their empire, grow whatever, what their thing is, kill everybody else, protect themselves, say they have to do such and such to keep their way of life going. So though I think it's wrong what Israel is doing, I feel like this is what humanity has done throughout the course of time. So I guess it's a semantic thing with me and Nick. I think currently Israel is big enough. I do actually think that Israel, the Muslims kill Christians and kick Jews out. So I don't have a problem with Jewish people, and I don't have a problem with Jewish people being Israel. I don't have a problem with Israel existing per se. I do have an issue with how they want to exist. I think that the Israelis and the Iranians should exist together. Both sides, they got their own issues, but they don't want that to happen. So that's a two-side problem. But again, I see what Nick is saying, and that's why I would say, well, I don't want Israel to expand into Greater Israel, so we agree there. I don't want other nations expanding, whether it's America. I'm an American. That doesn't mean I support when America goes and talks about taking Greenland or talk about taking other places, Cuba, etc. Same thing with Russia. I don't agree with Russia going to take Ukraine, so Again, a lot of times people say I bring up points that are not being discussed. Well, I bring up the points that are not being discussed to put what's being talked about in proper perspective. I'm just saying that it's not one group doing this. I see a lot of people doing this bullshit, and everybody needs to cut it out, right? Again, most normal people just want peace, no crime, no eat, be able to take care of their loved ones. I think we have enough problems in regular society. So I don't necessarily understand why the elites are doing their whole little fighting and games amongst them. When I say the elites, all elites, right? Not just the Jewish elite, the American elite, whatever, the Russian elite, Japanese elite, all of them. Like, the games that they're playing are like hurting people. So just my angle is a little different from Nick. I am an American, but I just look at all people as equal, all people as deserving dignity, all people as one and the same things. I think I'm no different from somebody in Russia, or no different from somebody in China or Japan. I think, or like black, white, etc. I think we're all so very similar, and I think that nothing is being done for our problems, but we're all being asked to go to war, pay taxes, fund wars. It's always on the back of the working class and the regular people, regardless of what society we're talking about. It's always on the back of the working people that all of these fights and wars and things are getting paid, and those are the people losing their lives. So again, Nick was, again, I say it again, Nick was right. It's not like I'm saying what he's saying is wrong. I just think there's more to it than just blaming or talking negative about Israel. This is our first show back, guys. Let us know how let us know how we did. I think I might have said and stuff again a lot. I'll work on that, guys. I'll try to be a little bit clearer. I'll try to be a little bit more concise. This was my first day back. We look forward to talking to you guys and going down this journey of learning stuff about Israel, etc. So if you like this episode, please subscribe, hit the like button, share with friends, and we'll be back tomorrow. Producer reminded me we got comments. Oh, we've been off for a while, guys, so we got a few different comments. Oh, Stu. Okay, so people's talking about the Stu video, which is an older, well, they all older videos. I don't like blacks. And then, okay, this is when Stu made some comments, negative comments about black people. Stu is correct. Why don't you try to help the black community instead of gaslighting young men? He not once said he doesn't like blacks. He literally said, I don't like blacks. And you're telling me he never once said, I don't like blacks. Second, I think I definitely hold the black community accountable. I was finding out over just recently from people I know, supposedly black people don't like speaking to me. So when I talk about violent crime, when I talk about IQ, when I talk about impulse control, I talk about various things where other cultures are pointing out what they see and notice about black people. They notice black people are more impulsive. There's evidence and data saying that black people are more impulsive. There are things saying that black people are scoring lower than Asians and Europeans. Not everyone, so I'm going to pull this up soon. The producers like telling me certain issues on hot button issues. I think a lot of issues are hot button. But there's evidence showing like where black people are scoring compared to Europeans, Asians, and other cultures. That's my thing is, are black people making more impulsive and less intelligent decisions than Northern Europeans on average? Yes. Are Northern Europeans making more impulsive decisions and less intelligent decisions than East Asians on average? Yes. So my point is not to say that black people shouldn't be held accountable. It's just wondering why shouldn't we hold every culture accountable? Shouldn't we hold the white people accountable for what they're doing? Pacific Islanders accountable for what they're doing? I'm not going to say Asians, but Jews accountable for what they're doing? It's just, I don't mind holding my culture accountable. I just want to hold everyone's culture accountable. Here's the next comment. No accountability. Perceptual victims commit most the crime. I'm gonna finish before I respond. Oh my God, he said he doesn't like us. Newsflash, nobody does because you contribute nothing to society. Name one major black place on earth that's a nice place to live. So we'll go through all of this. For one, there are many places like Nigeria, etc., and many places in Africa, Ethiopia, etc., that have tons of nice places. So these African places are countries just like America and just like Europe. There are nice places where they have rich people like kings and queens and palaces. They look nice. You wouldn't go into a king anywhere. They have gold and their how they're living is immaculate because you're talking about a king. But then if you go somewhere where it's poverty, whether it's a project, whether it's rural America, whether people, when they talk about Africa, they try to look at it like a jungle, but that's basically people with no money. And the same thing in the Middle East. Poor people live poor, wealthy people live wealthy. That's not a racial thing. That is just you looking at the poor people in Africa and making a statement. Because again, I answered your question. There are nice places in Africa. But you said perpetual victims commit the most crime. When you say most, you must mean per capita, but what you probably don't realize is there are different types of crimes. So for black people, they are committing violent crimes at a higher rate, like murder. They're committing murder at like either 5 or 10 times the rate of whites. And then something like assault, they're committing at 3 times the rate of whites. But then if you look at something like child pornography, if you look at something like DUIs, if you look at something like bestiality, where you're having sex with animals, white people are doing all of those crimes at higher rates than African Americans. Also suicide. White people commit suicide at the same rate that blacks commit murder, right? So if murder is off the charts for blacks, then suicide is off the charts for whites. So I think that when you are asking me or saying to me that a certain group commits the most crime and no one likes us, I think that this is playing into you just picking out certain crimes that we commit that people don't like. But there are lots of crimes that are being committed. No one supports child pornography, so nobody likes that white people are doing it. No one's talking about it. That's the only issue, except Tim Tebow recently brought it up. Sorry I didn't read everybody's name. This is Dan G08I. Here we go with the same Democratic propaganda crap. It's always the same. If you're not in our cult, you're a racist. And it's very old and tired. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a libertarian. I'm independent. I'm center right. I lean more towards the policies of the Republican Party, but not just the extremists, the narrative on the Republican side, to me, it paints black people, homosexuals, transgenders, women, etc. It paints them bad. It stereotypes every group, but then it makes white males look like the savior. So simply because the narrative on the Republican side skews towards white men and it somewhat skews against all of those people, that's why I would say I wouldn't call myself a Republican, but I would definitely say the values on the conservative side seem accurate to me. For example, I'll talk about sexuality, since we don't cover that much on the show. Most people, I would say the mass majority of people, aren't gay and they aren't trans. So most people in society, their personal lifestyle is conservative. So my thing is, I think that it's totally fine for people to be trans and totally fine for people to be gay. I just think the Democrats, or you say I'm not with them. I think the Democrats put too much focus on that minority. So I think that it would behoove the Democrats if they would try to talk about the entire country, obviously the two extremes, but the middle. The middle is really big to me, and the middle kind of gets lost in the like social media world, even the YouTube world. Your average person, I keep saying this over and over, cares about their bills, healthcare, taxes, having food on the table. People are working hard to survive, and that's what people care about. But then you get all of these sensational people talking about the Jews and the blacks and this and that. And I don't think your average person really cares about that. That's just like hot button issues that they kind of, it's entertaining, but that's not really what's important to them. I'll read a few more because I do kind of go off on tangents, and I guess I don't want to hold the first episode so long, so I'll read 2 more. And then if the producer don't come back in, I might talk to you guys for a minute because he's out the room and I want to try some stuff out, different topics, different things on my head, kind of like a little rant from me. But this is from Happa6653. This is when Nick called out Republicans pushing blue-collar jobs. Let's not forget that having a kid is a bigger debt generator than the university. A literal over 20-year investment. The hypocrisy of blue-collar is hilarious. Since it was so long ago, I remember what the clip was about, but I don't kind of know how what you said ties into it. So I'm going to leave that one alone for right now, and I'm going to finish this on Richard Queso 13. This Nick Fuentes, they're black people. I know what that's about. When Nick was lying on the blacks, like he does often, he lies on the Jews often, he lies on Hispanics, lies on women, etc. often. But this one person said, pro-black people need to do way better. Pro-black. No one should be pro-black. We should all be for everyone. But yes, I guess he's trying to say that the black community should do better. Yes, of course we should do better. We do things that are wrong as a group, not every individual black, but our community using more welfare. We're committing more violent crime. We're killing more people per capita. There's tons of issues in the black community. We got to focus on them, period. Let's see. Your emotional intelligence is at all-time low. That's EQ, emotional intelligence. Never took EQ tests, but I have, as we all take IQ tests and we take standardized tests, I don't think my IQ is low per se. I'm not a genius, but I wouldn't say I'm low IQ per se. The victim blaming, lack of accountability. I just took accountability in this conversation, Richard, so I don't agree that white. I'm noticing this. I don't know if you white or not, or Hispanic. When people talk about my community, it's fine. But then when we talk about another community, they say we're deflecting. But I feel like everyone's just saying what they see. So if it's deflecting for me to talk about the white community, is it all, this is a question I'm asking you, is it deflecting for the white community to talk about the black community when they have their own issues? Blaming white people for everything and the lack of emotional intelligence, already answered that. You get mad so quick for anything. That's a majority, and FBI statistics do not lie. We'll close the episode on this. 6% of blacks commit crime. Because you're talking about the FBI statistics, so whether it's 2019 chart of 43 or 2023, forgot if that's chart 49. We're talking about the crime statistics. You're talking about criminals, people who are arrested. 6% of blacks commit crime, 3% of Hispanics, 3% of whites, and 1% of Asians. So you can't say that's the majority when we're talking about 6, 3, and 1. And yes, the statistics do not lie. They're just talking about a minority. But we'll touch on this stuff another episode. So let us know what you thought about this episode, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace. If you like this video, please smash the like button, comment, and subscribe. New shows airing Monday through Thursday.